now we are moving to a new chapter. We call it price discrimination. Actually, this is not a new thing for you because you have seen this when you learn intermediate microeconomics too. However, this topic was a subtopic in the monopoly study, isn't it? Okay, so this is actually the extension of what you have done in intermediate micro 2. It's just the same thing, but you'll see a bit more detailed part, especially when it comes to calculation, also concept, and also additional bit of the theories that you should know. So what does it mean by price discrimination, and how many types of price discrimination do we have here? In terms of theoretical study, we have about 3 types of price discrimination. I'm sure you have heard these 3 different types: the first degree, the second degree, and the third degree. But before that, what does it mean by price discrimination? If you look at the word discrimination itself, it means you're discriminating between 2 people or 2 things when, if we talk about market, when the cost is just the same, then suddenly you charge 2 different people different prices. So this is discriminating. So of course, when it is discriminating, then people always look at the person who is the victim in it, okay, and who is the the one that charge different price, okay. So technically, price discrimination exists when a firm charges either different consumer different prices for the same product. You charge different prices for the same product, but then you have identical costs. So you don't have a clear justification as to why you want to charge different consumers different price, or different consumer the same price even though the cost of supplying the good varies between consumer. That is also discrimination, okay, as if that the one with the higher cost, okay, gain more because they are charged the same price with the with the one that have a lower cost. Okay, supposedly the one that has higher cost should be charged higher, isn't it? So when we talk about price discrimination, there are 2 things that we need to understand. Number 1, discrimination can occur only if market power exists. That means if you have market power, you can manipulate price. If you cannot manipulate price, of course you cannot manipulate others. Okay, therefore you cannot discriminate others. And number 2, the existence of most price discrimination implies a lack of Pareto efficiency. Now, what does it mean by Pareto efficiency here? I'm sure you have heard this term before, especially in the intermediate micro 2. It's basically in a simple way, you cannot make yourself better off without making another person worse off, because all of you already at the best position or optimal position. So if you want to be better, there will be somebody else that need to sacrifice and become worse off. So that is Pareto efficiency. However, most price discrimination doesn't have this kind of Pareto efficiency. Okay, now let's move to the types of price discrimination. So we want to look at the first type of price discrimination, that is first degree price discrimination. So this is more or less like revision that you have done in intermediate micro 2, isn't it? However, like I said, of course you're going to see a more detailed part of it. Then you can see clearly the process of performing price discrimination by the firm, okay, imperfect firm. Now, so when we talk about first degree price discrimination, it involves charging a different price to each consumer. So the first degree price discrimination is the ideal or the perfect one. Okay. Now, however, the conjecture is the first degree price discrimination improves welfare. How to justify all of this statement? Let's look at the graph as an example first. Okay, so let's say we have this graph, and then the demand is given by the first downsloping curve here. I've already drawn it using computer. So this is the first demand, and the demand is price equivalent to 10 minus Q. This is the indirect demand function. And the second downsloping, which is below the demand curve, is actually the marginal revenue curve. Okay, so this is the demand function, marginal revenue. What about the red line here? The red line here is actually marginal cost function, because it is constant at level 2, so it's also equivalent to AC, average cost, isn't it? So this one is 2. Alright, now let's say without price discrimination, the first degree price discrimination, then to maximize profit, it is MR equal to MC. It is at the intersection between MR and MC curve, which is here, isn't it? If you go down, then you can see quantity here, QM, okay, single price, and then price is here, which is 6 p.m. Okay, and then you can see, if I label it properly, then you can see what we call consumer surplus. And consumer surplus start at 6, I call it point A, and then 10 B, and then C here. Okay, so that's the consumer surplus. And what about if we want to have, what we call first degree price discrimination? If you can recall back what you have learned in intermediate micro 2, the first degree price discrimination means for every single person in the market or customers in the market, you know their reservation price. Because you know the reservation price, therefore you can capture all of the consumer surplus for each of the person. Therefore, no consumer surplus left for each of them. When you capture, you get more revenue, you get more profit. Okay? So here, let's say I'll show you the first unit of good, which is 1 here. The price is 9. Okay, the price is 9. Alright. So the second unit of goods sold to another person, which is 2 here, the price is 8. Okay. And then the third unit of good is sold at 7. Until what? Until 8 unit of good. Okay. Was sold at 2. You don't sell 9 unit of good if you're the imperfect firm. Firm in the imperfect market. Why? Because below 2, you cannot cover the cost. You get what I mean here? So what is the total revenue when you manage to charge different quantity purchased by different customer, different price level? Okay. So this kind of first degree price discrimination results in total revenue. And that total revenue is actually the first one, 9 times 1. Okay, which is 9 plus 8 times 1, which is 2 minus 1 times 8. Okay, 8. And then the following one, the next one, 7. The next one, 6. Until what? Until 2, isn't it? Okay, so the total revenue that you can get here is actually 44 quid. Okay, so on the sales of 8 units. Okay, like I said just now, the 9 unit would not be sold because the consumer reservation price is actually 1 at this point, isn't it? But the cost here is 2, so you are not making profit. So this is less than the marginal cost, so you are not selling it. Okay, as you can see here, what happens to consumer surplus? Consumer surplus for every level of prices has been captured by the firm. So no consumer surplus left for consumer, and therefore consumer surplus in the case of first degree price discrimination, because all of them have been captured by the firm, then CS is 0. Get me? But what about producer surplus? Producer surplus is actually the entire area below the demand curve here until this point. Okay, let's call this point F, and also this point 2 here, I call it D. So producer surplus is actually point D, B, F, isn't it? Very big. Okay, producer surplus becomes big here because all consumer surplus gone to producer. Because producer managed to charge the same price as reservation price of consumer, the highest price that the consumer is willing to pay. That's the reservation price. Okay. Now, but earlier I did mention to you that if there is no price discrimination, then MR equal to MC at this point, and then the quantity is 4, and then the price is 6, isn't it? So everybody is charged 6. You don't discriminate. Okay, even if they buy 2, 3, 4, you don't discriminate. Everybody is charged 6. So that is not price discrimination. And because of that, then the total revenue for this case is actually 6 times 4, which is equivalent to 24. You compare 24 and 44 here, 24 is much smaller. Okay, therefore, in this case, price discrimination gives more benefit to the firm. And at the same time, if you charge only one single price, okay, you have consumer surplus A, B, and C, yeah? Okay, and then there is a welfare loss basically. Okay, there is a welfare loss. Where is it? The welfare loss is here. I call it point, ECF, the triangle ECF. What about the rectangle DACE? This one is producer surplus. Okay, when the price charge is without price discrimination. Now, because the existence of the triangle of ECF and the triangle of ECF is known as welfare loss, then charging one single price is not beneficial when welfare loss exists. And if you charge with the first degree price discrimination, there is no welfare loss because all consumer surplus being captured by producer surplus. There is no net loss. So that's why, to some extent, if you go back to this point, okay, first degree price discrimination improves welfare relative to a single price monopoly, because in the single price monopoly you can see clearly we have welfare loss, but in the first degree price discrimination there is no welfare loss because all consumer surplus being captured and becomes producer surplus, positive producer surplus. Okay, the second degree price discrimination. I'm sure you have heard the second type of price discrimination. In the intermediate microeconomics too, it has been explained thoroughly using certain examples. But here we want to look into detail of this second type of price discrimination. So with the second degree discrimination, we can say that all consumers are offered the same price schedule, and then consumers self-select into different price category. Yeah? So another name for second degree price discrimination is block pricings. Okay, so one good example is in the airline industry. This is not similar to the example that we used to show in the intermediate microeconomics. When it comes to airline industry, this is different. Yeah. So for instance, when in the airline industry, if you talk about a plane, you have what people can understand is that, oh, when it comes to price discrimination in the airline industry, when it comes to the air ticket, then they will say that business class and also economic class. Now, I'm not talking about that kind of price discrimination, because that kind of price discrimination is not the second degree price discrimination. Okay, I'm talking about within the economic class. For instance, if we talk about Malaysia Airlines or AirAsia, within the economic class itself, and then if you want to book online ticket, let's say this is a plane in the second economic class, and then they put seat here, three, and then aisle is in the middle, then you have another three here. Okay, but all I don't want to draw all the square here, because I just want to give you some idea about the way we book air ticket, okay, online, be it Malaysian Airline or AirAsia or Emirates or whatever. Then we have more. So let's say another compartment here is for business class. I'm not talking about the business class compared with economic class. I'm talking about within the economic class itself. I just want to show you the second degree price discrimination. Okay, so within this economic class, now if you book within certain period, for instance, you book early within like 2 months before the departure, then you can see that you can choose some seats here in which the price is the cheapest. Okay, but then if you move to the second, let's say a week or a second 2 weeks before the departure, even within the economic class, you can see that the price is higher. Okay, so because it's not about the time, because they actually do the block by having some part of the seats here, the price is like this. Okay, let's say 200. Okay, let's say you're going from let's say from London to Berlin. Okay, let's say 200. But the same economy class, if you book it quite late, okay, then you are left with certain seats only, let's say here, and then the seat here, because they already blocked some seat for certain price, another block for certain price, then you have, let's say here, £400 from London to Berlin, for instance, yeah. So this is what I mean. But if you can recall back in the study of intermediate micro 2, we talk about second degree price discrimination. It's about block pricings also. But then the example given was utility. For instance, electricity. Especially in the developed country or in the four season countries where you have four different types of seasons, winter is the season that uses the most of the utility, especially gas and also electric. But then in summer you don't really use a lot of energy, okay, in terms of heating and whatnot now. So during winter, if you consume certain block of quantity, let's say we are talking about electric between 0 to, let's say, 1000 watt, then the price per uh, let's say 100 watt is, let's say, 1 quid, for instance, or £1. But if you use more, let's say you move to the second block, let's say you have reached more than 1000 watt per day or per hour, or for instance, then for every 100 watt you pay, you only need to pay, instead of 1 quid, you pay, let's say, 50p. Okay, so the more you use, then you move to the next block of consumption, then you only need to pay a cheaper price per unit. Okay, so that is block pricing, one good example of second degree price discrimination. In this textbook they use airline example. Also they give you another example, let's say Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut, what they did in certain countries, also in Malaysia, let's say you buy the first large pizza, cost you, let's say, $10. Okay, if you buy the next pizza after you buy the first pizza, then you only need to pay for 5, for instance. Okay, so this is another example of second degree price discrimination. Now in this case, after you bought the second pizza, actually you only need to pay what price per pizza? 7.50, isn't it? Okay, so here when we talk about the second degree price discrimination, although consumer pay different prices, yeah, every consumer who buys within the same price category pays the same price. So you, for the case of utility, electricity during winter, if you are already in the second block, you consume between 2000 watt and 4000 watt, for instance, per hour, for instance, yeah, because of heating and whatnot during winter. So if you are within that block and some other customer are also within that block, those customer within that block of pricing will pay the same price level per unit of watt. That's what it means. So firms use second degree discrimination when they know there are different groups of consumers with different reservation price, but they are unable to identify, or it is too costly to identify each type of customer. But they look at the way you consume, yeah, the quantity you consume and whatnot. Okay, so that's the second degree price discrimination. Now another good example is what we call discount, quantity discount. Okay, so let's say we use a textbook example. I'm sure you know Ralph Lauren boutique. So it produces a pair of designer jeans for, let's say, the cost is 20, marginal cost constant 20, so it's equivalent to average cost, and they offers a quantity discount. So let's say without price discrimination, so if Ralph Lauren charge a uniform price of 20 for all of its change, then the company would sell more than 100 pairs, for instance. So this is not price discrimination because everybody pays the same price, let's say. And Ralph Lauren charges a price exactly equivalent to MC. So you could expect you can sell more than 100 pairs. Alright, but then let's say we're going to use this graph. Let's say the cost we already know, marginal cost is equivalent to AC equivalent to 20 per unit. Okay, let's say if you're a customer, you buy the first pair of jeans, the first pair of jeans costs you $80. Okay, but let's say you want to buy the second pair, they give you discount, so the second pair gives you, let's say, $60. Okay, But if you buy the third pair also, they give you even more discount. Let's say the third pair here is $40. And if let's say you want to buy the fourth pair, it's going to cost you even cheaper, which is 20. Okay, so this is this discount price here based on the quantity you purchase. So if you're given this kind of pricing structure, suppose a Ralph Lauren store sells jeans to, let's say, 10 consumers in each of the 4 categories each day. Yeah, so we have here 10 consumers. So let's say for the first price, okay, equivalent to 80, there will be 40 customer buy. Okay, let's say there are customer who buying the first pair, and then at the same time they also buy the second pair. Okay, how many customer here? Let's say 30 buyers. Okay, remember for each of the price, the store sell jeans to 10 customer in each of the 4 categories each day. Let's say number 3, there are some customer who purchase the first pair, the second pair, and also the third pair. How many of them? Let's say 20 buyers. Okay, and let's say for the fourth one, the first pair they purchase, the second pairs they purchase, the third pairs they purchase, and the fourth pairs they also purchased. How many customer? Let's say 10 buyers. Okay, so that's the idea. And I'll try to show all of this in the form of graph. If you look here, this is unfinished graph plotting. I did it earlier. So here, on the vertical axis, we have dollars. On the horizontal axis, here we have quantity. And if you see the red or orange horizontal line here, this is the marginal cost equals to AC equals to 20. And the downsloping one, which is not linear here, is basically the demand curve. So this one is the demand curve. Okay, so let me label the horizontal axis and also the vertical axis, the coordinate. So we have here 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. So here also we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. Okay, so here we already know that there are 40 customers purchase the pairs of jeans at the price of 80. Okay, so here we have 40 here at the price of 80 here. Then I can draw a line here. I use blue line. I can draw a line here to show you the purchase. Okay, so here, right? Okay, now with this, then the total revenue here, I call it, the total revenue here, the rectangle here, is actually what? It's actually 3,200, isn't it? So it's actually 3,200. How do you get it? Because 80 times 40. Now, when the price is 60 here, okay, we have another additional 30 buyers, isn't it? So here and here. So we have another one here. Okay, with this another one here, then we have, what is the total revenue? The total revenue is 1,800, because 1,800 here is actually 60 price times 30 here. Between 70 and 40 is 30, isn't it? Okay, now when the price, the discount price for the third, purchase is at 40, then we have another additional 20 buyer here. Then we have this rectangle, and then here we can get what? 40 times 20, because 90 minus 70, 20. Okay, then you can have 800, isn't it? And then the last one, when the purchase is for the fourth pair, and the price is 20 here, and the quantity, the buyer is 10, so we reach 100 here. Then this one is actually 200. So the sum of all this area is actually the total revenue. So the total revenue, if you total, sum up all of them, what do you get? You're going to get 3200 plus 1800 plus 800 plus 200 is going to be 6000. Okay, from this, second degree price discrimination. Right. Now here, as you can see, let me erase this thing first so that I can have some space to write. We have, different price level because of the discount for the second purchase, the third purchase, and the fourth purchase. So, and we have seen that in the form of graph here, the total revenue received by this firm is 6000. If you compare with the single price, how much it was the total revenue? The total revenue was lesser, isn't it? Because 20, you can sell more than 100, but still lesser. Okay, now let's go back to this. So when we talk about using the second degree price discrimination, when we have the price here is 80, okay, quantity at that price is what? Is 40, isn't it? When we have 60, quantity at that price is 30. You see 70 minus 40 here. When we have 40, we have 90 minus 70, which is 20, because we have 20 buyers. And then the last one here we have 10. But when we talk about total quantity sold, the first one is of course 40. And the second one is what? 40 plus 30 becomes 70. This one plus another 20 becomes 90. And then 90 plus 10 becomes 100. So that's the idea, yeah? Okay. But then, like I said earlier, without price discrimination, if, let's say, Ralph Lauren charge a uniform price of 20, exactly equal to marginal cost, for all of its jeans, yeah, the company would sell more than 100 pairs in it. Okay? So, for that case, where's the demand curve? The demand curve without price discrimination is actually, lie to the right of the current demand curve. So I don't want to draw the new demand curve for the, for this, without price discrimination. Otherwise, the graph becomes, messy. But my main point here is that when there is no price discrimination, you charge at 20, selling more than 100 for a Ralph Lauren, okay, 100 pairs. And so the demand curve would be here because we talk about more than 100. It should be to the right of the current demand curve, isn't it? Okay, so that's the idea. Now, in this case, when it comes to comparison between one single price and also second degree price discrimination in terms of welfare, we want to look at the comparison of welfare. Which one is better? Is it charging single price or different price level based on second degree price discrimination? It becomes very hard. Okay, it becomes very hard because the demand curve is not the same demand curve, which is to the right of the current demand curve. Alright, now regardless that problem, then we still want to look at the consumer surplus. We still want to look at the producer surplus. Okay, now what about the consumer surplus? Let me erase some spaces so that I can, I can show you something. So the consumer surplus for the first price, if you buy the first pair of jeans, which is at 80, where is the consumer surplus? The consumer surplus is actually, let me use the yellow one, this one. Can you see? The consumer surplus, if you forget about the concept, it is the area below the demand curve and also the price charge, which is 80. So that's the first consumer surplus. And the second one here, when the price is 60 here, alright, then we have this, isn't it? The third one, we have this. The fourth one, the last one, we have this. Okay, so if I label the first one here as area W following the textbook, this X, this is Y, This is Z. And then you can see that the consumer surplus is actually W plus X plus Y plus Z. Okay. For the second price, okay, which is 60, why don't we take area under the curve until here? What I mean here is that maybe some of you would question me, why the consumer surplus is not this triangle for the second price. You get what I mean? For the price of 60. Okay. Why it has to be X? You have to remember the person who buy the price at the second, price, which is 60, have to purchase the price at 80 first. Okay. When they purchase the price at 80, some area here has been captured as producer surplus. That's why we don't consider W here. We don't consider, anything between 80 and 60, and also 40 here. You get what I mean here? All right. So let me erase the red line here so that you won't be confused. All right. Now, let's look at the welfare effects of a second degree price discrimination. Let's use this example. So let's say we are talking about the second degree price discrimination in the airline industry. So usually airlines, they charge different fares for different types of tickets, and they always discriminate between vacation travelers who stay for a week or longer at their destination and business travelers who stay for one day. I can say usually if you stay one day only, the ticket will be expensive. But if you are vacation travelers, stay for a week or longer, you get cheaper price, for instance. So let's say we use this hypothetical example. Let's say we have Get You There Air, airlines, something similar to Malaysian Airline or Emirates or AirAsia. So this airline charges two fares for its flight from New York to LA. So these two fares are what? So if you just have unrestricted round trip, you can go, and stay for one day or less. Then the coach fare is 745. But if you take the vacation special in which you have to stay in LA for a minimum of 2 weeks, then you just need to pay for 400. So this is like, if you have more times, you may wish to stay longer in LA, but then you may incur more costs in addition to the air ticket, isn't it? Because you have to get the hotel and whatnot. So here, if you are business traveler, so let's say you are business traveler. So in this case, the maximum amount you are willing to pay for the round ticket to fly to LA is actually, let's say, 800. So when I say about the maximum price here that you are willing to pay as a business traveler, if you want to stay only one night, okay, unrestricted, ticket, then this is what we call your reservation price. But if you, want to stay for 2 weeks, your willingness to pay is like, this is for one night, okay, unrestricted. But then if you want to choose the vacation package here, then you are willing to pay maximum, let's say 450. So 2 weeks stay. Okay, 2 weeks stay. So that's for business traveler. But if you're a vacation traveler, for instance, okay, so if you just want to stay for one night, you don't want to pay anything. So your reservation price is 0. But then if they offer you to stay for at least 2 weeks, in LA, then you're willing to pay, let's say 400. Let's say the cost per trip is fixed, and therefore we call it marginal cost. For per person, per pack is $100. Okay, so remember we have business traveler and one vacation traveler. So now we want to look at the welfare. All right, what happens to the welfare in this second degree price discrimination example here? Okay, so first we want to look at the producer surplus. Now the producer surplus here is actually equivalent to what? It is actually equivalent to 1,200. How do we get that 1,200? Now look at the reservation price for staying, less than 2 weeks. The reservation price is only available for business traveler, which is 800, isn't it? Which is 800. But for vacation traveler, he's not willing to pay anything. So you take this reservation price for 800, okay, and plus what? Plus the 400 here, okay, 400. Our vacation traveler, the price of, the willingness to stay for 2 weeks. So you plus 400. So you got 1,200. And then minus the cost per person per pack is 100. We have 2 people, so we have 200. So here minus 200. So what do we get here is 1,000, isn't it? And at the same time, what happens to the consumer surplus? Consumer surplus has been captured for business traveler. This is the reservation price, isn't it? 800. But this reservation price actually has been captured by the airline company. Get you the airlines, okay? And at the same time, vacation travelers, the highest reservation price is 400, has been all captured by the same airline. So what happens to consumer surplus? Because all of them has been captured, so consumer surplus becomes 0. Now, in this case, when we try to calculate the net welfare here is actually consumer surplus plus producer surplus, isn't it? And in this case, 0 plus 1,000. So it becomes 1,000. Can you see? Okay, so this is the case of the second degree price discrimination in the airline industry. However, what happens if this airline cannot do the price discrimination? If this airline cannot do the price discrimination, what does it mean? You recall back the story here. The story says, suppose that Get You There Air charges 2 fare for its flight from New York to LA, an unrestricted round-trip coach fare of $749, and a vacation special fare of $400 if you stay in Los Angeles for a minimum of 2 weeks. If there is no restriction, you're not bounded by the, by any vacation, whatnot, then, they want to charge 749, isn't it? But they offer you, if you want to stay, you can get 400. This is different. However, if they cannot do this, this discrimination to different price of 749 and also 400, what price will they charge here? They will charge 800. They don't choose the 400 here. Okay, they will charge 800. So when they charge 800 here, what happens then? Okay, only one person buy the ticket, which is business traveler, isn't it? And the cost of one person, marginal cost is 100, isn't it? So in this case, let me write it here. If the airline cannot discriminate the price, okay, the price will be 800. And remember the cost is 100, isn't it? Therefore, from here, producer surplus is 800 minus 100, okay, which is obviously 700, okay? Because in this case, when it is 800, do you think that the vacation traveler would buy the ticket? No. So that's why we only have one person buying, and then as a consequence, we have this. And remember, 800 here is the reservation price, the highest price that is, the highest price by the business traveler in terms of his willingness to pay for the air ticket. And what happens to the consumer surplus in this case? Because the airline, company charges at the reservation price, so of course, obviously, there is no consumer surplus at all. Okay, so the total welfare now is 700 only after minus, the cost here, because total welfare should be what? Should be consumer surplus plus producer surplus. So 0 plus 700 give you 700. Okay, So can you see? Producer surplus here is 700. But in the first case here, okay, sorry, not producer surplus. I'm talking about the total welfare. The total welfare here is 700. But the total welfare here, when we discriminate, is 1,000. So it is very obvious that the social welfare is, greater and better with price discrimination, because you can also offer lower price to the consumer who wants to use cheaper price, isn't it? And at the same time, you can capture their consumer surplus. However, of course, there are some cases in which second degree price discrimination can reduce welfare compared with a uniform price policy or compared with a single price policy. So how this would happen? For instance, let's say, remember we still have business traveler and we have vacation traveler. Okay, we have 1%, 1% for each of the group. Okay, suppose now, let's say business traveler, if he only want to stay at LA for one night, okay, then he is willing to pay the highest price for 800. Let's say stay one night only, instead of having vacation or holiday there. But if you offer him to stay for 2 weeks in LA, he would say the maximum he would pay is 400. Remember previously, the maximum he would pay was 450, isn't it? So this is for 2 weeks stay. Okay? And what about vacation traveler? Now, let's say, all right, vacation traveler says, if you want me to stay one night there, just to have vacation for one night, then the highest price that I'm willing to pay is 650. So suddenly he changed his mind. Okay? But then when you ask him to stay 2 weeks, his willingness to pay increases. Instead of 400, it becomes 600. Okay, so this is the new, reservation price now. Okay, now from this, let's say the airline company wants to discriminate between, these two, travelers. So let's say without discrimination, okay, we haven't talked about discrimination. Without discrimination, what price will the airline charge? Of course, at 100, isn't it? 800. Okay, and then to the vacation traveler, okay, is 600. Okay, so business travelers stay one night, vacation travelers stay 2 weeks, but you get 600 here. Okay, why they don't charge 650 for vacation traveler if they want to discriminate? If they want to discriminate, you must have distinct product. You get what I mean here? Here, business travelers stay one night, pay 800. Suddenly, vacation travelers stay one night, you pay. He only needs to pay 650. In this case, this kind of discrimination is not justified. You get what I mean? So, for business traveler, you charge him 800. For vacation travelers, you charge him 600 and stay 2 weeks instead of one night. Can you see this kind of, realistic discrimination? All right. Now, because you charge them the highest, reservation price for each of the category. For instance, business traveler is willing to pay 800 if he stay one night, you charge him 800, and vacation traveler, if he is willing to stay 2 weeks, he is willing to pay the highest 600. You are actually capturing all of the consumer surplus for business traveler and also vacation traveler. So as a consequence here, consumer surplus in this case is 0, isn't it? But what about producer surplus? Okay, now producer surplus in this case is, you see here, 800 plus 600 minus the cost, isn't it? And what's the cost? Remember, one person 100, two people 200. So here you can see the producer surplus becomes 1,200. Okay. Now, what about here? This is with discrimination, yeah? This is with discrimination. What about if without discrimination? What price will the airline charge for unrestricted fare? And in this case, without discrimination, okay, the airline will give you unrestricted traveling days. Okay, they just give you one category, unrestricted traveling days. Let's say one night is the minimum. Okay, and the price charge is 650. So you compare one night here and one night here, you look at the reservation price, the airline will choose the lowest so that at least, vacation traveler can also travel. Okay, so in this case, the airline can sell ticket to business traveler when the price is at 650 and also to vacation traveler. Okay, so the airline sells two ticket. So sells two ticket, incur cost for two persons. So what is the producer surplus? In this case, producer surplus is 650 times 2 minus total cost 200, isn't it? So you're going to get 1,100. Okay. And in this case, can you see when the airline charge single price instead of discriminated price, okay, then business traveler is enjoying it because business traveler initially the highest price he is willing to pay is 800, isn't it? So what happens here? Of course, there exists consumer surplus because the payment is only 650 for the flight ticket, but business traveler actually, was willing to pay 800. Now, in this case, there exists consumer surplus. How much is the consumer surplus? So I write it here, yeah. So consumer surplus in the second case here, without price discrimination, is actually, consumer surplus 800 minus 800 minus 650 equals to 150, isn't it? 150 for one ticket. Okay, because vacation traveler doesn't have consumer surplus. Why? Because the price charge is exactly to the maximum, price that vacation travelers is willing to pay. Okay, so what happens to social welfare in this case? All right, social welfare in this new case is actually what? Consumer surplus plus producer surplus. We have calculated the producer surplus for, non-discriminating price, which is 1,100. 1,100 plus consumer surplus that we get here is 150. So altogether will be 1,250. Okay, so 1,250. So in this case, can we say that second degree price discrimination reduces welfare or not? All right. Yes, obviously, yes. By how much? By 50. How do you know? You look at the first case here. The first case here until here is the example of second degree price discrimination for this airline, isn't it? And the second one here is when there is no price discrimination. When there is no price discrimination, the social welfare is 1,250. When there is price discrimination, the social welfare is 1,200 because consumer surplus is 0. So 1,200 plus 0 is 1,200, isn't it? So the difference is 50. All right. So without discrimination is better than with discrimination in this case. So in this case, the second degree price discrimination reduces welfare. Second degree price discrimination. Now we want to look at the third degree price discrimination, which is the last type of price discrimination for the chapter. Now, when we talk about the third degree price discrimination, firms are actually able to separate consumers into two or more groups according to their different elasticity of demand. Okay, so for instance, if you have income elasticity of demand, the rich would, be very inelastic in terms of the change in price, isn't it? Because they can always afford to buy at any price level compared to the, to the middle income people. So middle income people, if you change the price a little bit, or even the poor people, then they start to be very responsive towards the change in the price. So you could expect that the demand is very elastic in terms of income or in terms of price, for instance. So let's look at the example here. I'm going to use the textbook example again so that you can always refer to the textbook whenever you don't understand the concept. So let's say we have a large multiplex movie theater in Fort Lauderdale in Florida, you see, and the movie theater owner recognizes that it has two different types of demand actually. The first one is from the senior citizens aged 65 and above, and the second demand is for any adults below 65. Now let me put it in the form of graph first before we analyze it thoroughly. So let's draw the first graph. The first graph here, I put a price, okay, and I put quantity here. Here is the adult demand, and the adult demand here is for those who are less than 65 years old here. So the adult demand, you should understand those below 65, especially in the Western country, they are still working. In our country, in Malaysia, the age of pensioner starts from 60, but in the developed country, it starts from 65. So you could expect that they can still earn some income. Therefore, if you change the price a little bit, they are not really bothered about it. So what would you expect is that the demand curve would be inelastic. Okay, so let's say I draw it this way. Okay, so this is the adult demand curve given by PA 10 minus 1/10, okay, QA. Okay, and of course the associated marginal revenue curve is here. Let me redraw it properly. The associated one is here, should be below the demand curve. To it is a little bit. Okay, so this actually the right one. Okay, so and at the same time, this firm faces marginal cost equivalent to $1. So let's say I put it this way. So this is MC equals to $1 because it is constant, therefore it is also equivalent to average cost. Alright, so logically speaking, to maximize profit, here MR equal to MC, and this one is demand, this one is MR. So you can see MR equals to MC at this point. Then you drag down the line, then it becomes, let's say here, 45. And then to find the price, it is here. I call this point X. Okay, and the price here is $50, and the cost here is 1. Okay, so and we look at the second types of demand. We have dollar here, we have quantity here. This demand is for the adult or the senior citizen, which is above or equal to 65 years old. So these people are the pensioners. So of course they don't really earn income unless if they have some savings. So when you change the price a little bit, they becomes very responsive. They don't want to buy if the price is too expensive. They will buy, rush and go to buy the ticket because they love the movie, for instance, if the price is extremely cheap. So as a consequence, you could expect that the demand curve is very, very flat. When the demand curve is very, very flat, then we can say that it is very elastic. Now, in the form of graph, perhaps it looks like this. Okay, and then we have the associated MR curve, which is this, okay, which is much flatter than before. So this is the demand curve. Okay, so the demand curve here is for senior citizen. Okay, now so here PB, for instance, equals to 5. Okay, so this one is 5, this one is 10 because the intercept is 10. So 5 here minus, let's say 1/30, and then QB. Okay, so that's the demand curve. This one is the marginal revenue curve. Again, the movie owner, the movie theater owner is actually producing the same types of product, so they have the same types of marginal cost. So here the marginal cost is still 1. Okay, so for instance this, okay, marginal cost is equals to AC equals to 1. So MR equal to MC at this point, and then the price is here. Okay, so the price here is, let's say, 3, here is 1, quantity here is, let's say, 60, and let me label this point as point Y. Okay, this point is point C and point E, this one. Okay, so here, as you can see, when you have flatter demand curve, the price charge is lower than the price that has, steeper demand curve, isn't it? Alright, so that's the implication that you can see. The next thing is, remember, we want to look at the concept of the third degree price discrimination here. So you already know that as long as the firm can separate consumer into 2 groups or more than that, because of their different elasticity, then you can charge different price. So that means, in other words, as long as the firm can distinguish the groups by their different elasticity at any given point, okay, at any given prices, so when they try to adopt third degree price discrimination, they will get more profit actually. Alright, so now to explain it in detail after drawing the graph, let me show you something here. So I have shown you how to maximize profit, how to determine the price and whatnot. So here you can see for the adult demand, which is less than 45, the demand of the ticket is 45,000. Yeah, this one is in thousand, but I don't put it here. So something like this. Okay, right. Okay, and for the senior citizens, they will pay at 3 and buy ticket at 60,000 tickets. Okay, so the total quantity of tickets sold by this movie theater owner is actually 45 plus 60,000, which is equivalent to 100,000, 105,000. Okay, now the next thing I want to show you is to calculate the elasticity of demand. Now the elasticity of demand here for adult who are less than 65 years old, and also the senior citizens who are equal or more than 65 years old. So let's say for the first one here, let me use different pen. Let's say I use red pen. So the price elasticity of demand, if you can recall back the formula, is given by this. Okay, so delta Q over delta P times P over Q, isn't it? But here, because we use 1 point and 1 point, so we don't use delta, we use a triangle, change in Q over change in P times P over Q. So for the first one here, when price is at 550 at point X, so we want to look at the elasticity of demand for adults here who are less than 65 years old at point X. So that elasticity of demand is given by what? Is actually given by the change in Q over change in P. What is the change in Q? Change in Q is 45 minus 0. So origin is 0, 0. The new point at point X is 45 and 5.5. Can you get me? So here, we need to find this first. Okay, so this one is actually 45 minus 0 over 10 minus 5.5. 10 minus 5.5. Okay, and then the price at point X is 5.5 over 45. Okay, so if you look at this, change in Q is actually 45 minus 0. Change in P is actually 10 minus 5.5. Okay, so we have two coordinates here. The first coordinate is 45 and 45 and 5.5, and the second coordinate is here 0 and 10. Do you get me? So if you simplify this, then you get the answer something like 1.22. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now, let's look at the elasticity of demand for the senior citizens. So elasticity of demand is given by this. So we want to calculate it at point Y here. At point Y here, point Y you have 60 and 3, and then another point which is here on the same demand curve, which is 0, 5. Okay, so let's calculate it. So like I said, we need to look at the change in Q over change in P first. So the change in Q is 60 minus 0. Minus 0. And the change in P is actually 5 minus 3. Or 3 minus 5. Okay, sorry. 3 minus 5. So actually, this one should be 5.5 minus 3. Let me erase it because it doesn't correspond to the right way of calculating it. So here, 5.5 minus 10. Otherwise, you don't get the minus sign here. Because this is demand, you should get the minus sign. In the textbook, they don't put the minus sign because it's just to show you the law of demand. But here, I just show you so that it can make sense. Yeah. Okay. So, and then for the second one here, multiply by P over Q. P at Y is 3. Q at Y is 60. Okay, then you can get this answer, which is around 1.5. So obviously, with the more elastic demand curve for senior citizens, you can see the elasticity value in terms of absolute term, yeah, because we ignore this minus sign. Because like I said earlier, minus sign is just there to show you the law of demand. So we look at the value itself in absolute term. 1.5 is greater than 1.22 because the senior citizens demand curve, as you can see, is flatter, which is more elastic. Okay, so here you can see that when we can separate the demand of the consumer based on their elasticity, then the third degree price discrimination give you the price which is lower in the market with the more elastic demand, isn't it? So this is very obvious now. So what's the implication? I mean, in terms of welfare, what's the welfare implication of the third degree price discrimination? So we're going to look at this using this graph as well. So let's look at the welfare implication of the third degree price discrimination. How do we look at welfare? As usual, we calculate the consumer surplus and producer surplus, and then after that, we compare the welfare of the third degree price discrimination with the single price or the uniform price. Yeah. So let's begin. Now here, if you look at the first graph here, which is for adult below 65 years old, then we can start calculating or looking at the consumer surplus. So for consumer surplus, for the first graph here is actually given by this area. Let me use yellow color, this triangle. Okay. Anything below the demand curve and also the market price, which is 5.5. Okay, so you have that triangle actually. So let's call this triangle A. Okay, so the triangle A here, if you calculate the consumer surplus, it will be a what? 1/2 multiplied by 10 minus 5.5 multiplied by 45, isn't it? Then you're going to get here equivalent to 101.25. What about the second one here? So if I were to color it yellow as well, the consumer surplus area will be this. Okay, and let's calculate the consumer surplus here. Consumer surplus here is 1/2 multiplied by 5 minus 3 and then multiplied by quantity 60. What do you get here? You're going to get 60 as well, isn't it? Yes, 60. Okay, so the total consumer surplus, total, for both graph after the discrimination happens, is actually 101.25 plus 60. That gives us 161.25. Now, what about producer surplus? Now, for producer surplus for the first graph is given by this triangle. Let me shade it. We're using blue. This one. Okay, so I shade it. Now, so for the producer surplus here, how do we calculate it? It's actually this. Okay, so here 45 times in bracket 5.5 minus 1, isn't it? Then you can get this 202.5 in it. What about the second one here? The second one, the producer surplus is given by this area. Okay, it is the market price minus the cost or multiplied by the quantity. So this is the producer surplus. So here it is 3 minus 1 times 60. Okay, 3 minus 1 times 60, and it gives you 120. So total producer surplus is actually 202.5 plus 120. So 202.5 plus 120 equals to 322.5. So what is the total welfare? So total welfare now is very easy. You just add the total consumer surplus and the total producer surplus. So it becomes 161.25 plus 322.5, and this one obviously gives you 483.75. So this is when the third degree price discrimination happens. Now, what if we have, single price instead of discriminating, discrimination in terms of price? So if we have single price, then I have to show you the combination of the graph here. Let's put it here. Okay. So let's say after discrimination, then suddenly regulation changes, and then the movie theater owner is ordered to charge a uniform price to all buyers. So regardless whether you are adult less than 65 or not. Okay. So as usual, we have the price here, and then we have the quantity here. I put the two different graphs in the same graph here so that we can combine it and then can come out with the one demand curve only. Now I'll show you in the form of graph, but once you do revision, you try to do it in the form of mathematical procedure as well, yeah, because most of the time the exercises are not in the form of graph but in the form of maths. Okay, so now I begin to show you in the form of graph. So we have two different types of demand. Remember, the first one is for the adult who are less than 65, and another one which is more elastic for the adults pensioners who are more or equal to 65 years old. Now let's combine both of them into one diagram. So for the first one, it is very steep because this one is very inelastic. So this is for adult less than 65 years old, and the price is actually 10 minus 110Q. Now I don't differentiate between Q for adult and also Q for those who are more than 65 or senior citizens, because we want to combine them. And then for the second graph here, which is more flat, but before that, let me label the vertical axis, which is 10, and here is 100 in it. So the second graph here, if you can recall back, okay, it should basically starts here. Okay, so here, let's say 5 here. So this one is 5, and this one is actually for the senior citizen. Okay, and for the senior citizen, if you can recall back the demand curve, it looks like this: P equal to 5 minus 1/30, 1/30th Q. Okay, so that's it. Now, as you can see here, for practicality, in this segment of price between 10 and 5, the demand that is applicable is only the demand for adult, which is less than 65 years old. Okay, until price equal to 5 here. Do you get me? So then the combination of both demand curves should start at price equivalent to 5 until price equivalent to 0. So between 0 and 5, not between 5 and 10, because between 5 and 10, no senior citizens demand any ticket for movie theater. You get me? So that means from price between 5 to 10, the combined demand curve should be the adult demand curve less than 65 with it, which is this one. Okay, then the combination in terms of mathematics should start when the price is at 5. So when you combine them, both of them, when price starts at 5, this one is 0, then you can see the combination gives you this demand curve. Yeah, let me draw it in the form of graph. It looks like this, and then the intercept here is going to be 250, and then when you combine it mathematically, then you can have P equals to 6.25 minus 1 over 40 Q. And then if I were to extend this graph using the dashed line, then I put this. Then you can see here, the intercept here will be 6.25. I extend it so that you can see the intercept of the graph fully, but actually this dashed line doesn't show you the combination of graph. It's just for the purpose of understanding the drawing. Okay, now when price is at 5 here, the quantity here will be 50. Okay, if you don't believe me, you try to put the number 50 back into the demand function here, then you can get the price equivalent to 5. Okay, so as you can see, when we combine the two different types of demand curve with different types of elasticity, it creates a king point at this point. I call it point B. This one is point A, and this one is point C. It creates king point at point B because these two demand curves are totally different in terms of elasticity. So when they are combined, it's like, you know, a crash or a collision. You get what I mean here? And so it creates kink. So this is also one way of creating kink demand curve in oligopoly. Yeah? But this topic is not about that thing, kink demand curve. This topic is about the third price discrimination when we don't apply it, when we combine demand to get one uniform or one similar price. All right, but here our main objective is to see the welfare when the price is combined without any discrimination. So again, we need to find the welfare and we need to find the consumer surplus as well as the producer surplus. In order to find those things, we need to know the price. Now, in order to find the price, we need to know what the price can maximize this, firm when the price charge is always the same for everybody. So what's the price charge is always bring the objective of maximizing profit, isn't it? So maximizing profit is always MR equals to MC. And we know that MC here is given and it is 1, which is equivalent to AC because it's constant. So let's put this, constant MC into the graph. So let's say, and it looks like something like this, yeah? So let's say this. It's a bit hard to draw actually. Something like this. See here. Okay. MC equals to AC equals to 1. And then, before I forget, as you can see, we can have two different types of demand. At point B, it is very inelastic. So for the inelastic demand curve, I should have what we call the marginal revenue associated with AB demand curve. Let me draw it properly. Okay, this is a bit jiggly anyway. So, and then at the same time, I need to erase this dashed line so that it doesn't look messy at all. Okay, and then here we are done. And then for the demand curve, the combined demand curve, which is B and C, it also should have its own marginal revenue. So I don't need this marginal revenue anymore because this one is for the non-combined, the previous one for the senior citizen less. So I don't need this also, I don't need this, and I don't need this anymore. Okay, and then here, then I should put the marginal revenue for the combined one. Now, the marginal revenue for the combined one should be somewhere here. Okay, right. So the marginal revenue would be twice as steep as the demand curve here. Remember the concept, twice as steep as the demand curve here. 6.25 or minus 1/20 as twice as steep as the demand curve here. So because of the king at point B, you have two different types of elasticity of demand. The first one, between 10 to 5, the demand curve is actually taking the adult less than 65 demand curve. But once it's, below 5, it takes the combination of both of them. Why? Because we can only take the combination both of them starting from price equivalent to 5 and below, because between 10 and 0, there is no demand by senior citizen. Okay, then between 0 and 5 price level, then the associated marginal revenue is given by this. And as I said to you, marginal revenue is below the combined demand curve. And it is twice as steep as the combined demand curve, because that is the basic, drawing of marginal revenue for any kind of imperfect firm in the imperfect market. Now, anyway, let's go back to the main objective to look at the producer surplus and also consumer surplus, so that we can compare it with the welfare of the third degree price discrimination. Remember, this drawing is meant for one single price or one uniform price without any discrimination. But we haven't found the price here. So how to find the price here? So as usual, like I said to you, any kind of firm, when they want to charge the price, they should charge based on this profit maximizing condition in which MR equal to MC. However, in this graph, you can see because of two different types of elasticity, you can see two different points actually. The first point is here and the second point is here. What I mean is that we have two different points in which MR equal to MC. Yeah, and this is actually not 50 at this point. Let me draw it properly so that you are not confused. Wait a minute, I need not to miss my marginal revenue. Okay. Alright, so here, initially at point B, the quantity is 50 should be here. So this one should be different thing. Okay, so like I said, we have 2 points in which MR equal to MC. The first point is here, the second point is here. The first point here, MR equal to MC, if I drag up the line and hits the demand curve, then I can find the price here. And the price here is 3.625. Okay, I give you the price, but actually it can be done mathematically because all the equations are given. And what the quantity here? The quantity here would be, let's say, 105. Okay, it is the right quantity anyway, because this one is 125, so it is between 100 and 125. The price is 3625. And if you're talking about this MR equal to MC at this second point here, the quantity here would be 45. And if you drag up the line, okay, then it becomes 550. Okay, but which one will be picked by this firm in order to really maximize profit and really gain a lot of things, especially producer surplus? Okay, especially producer surplus. He will pick the first one here at price equal to this 3.625. What's the reason? You compare and contrast the producer surplus, then you get what I mean here. Okay, so here MR equal to MC, okay, quantity is 105, price is actually 3.625. Okay, now let's find consumer surplus. Let's also find the producer surplus so that we can look at the total welfare when there is no third degree price discrimination. Okay, so we have done the profit maximizing condition, we have found the price, we have found the quantity. Okay, so consumer surplus. Okay, how to calculate the consumer surplus here? Okay, so the consumer surplus is actually the area of this, yeah. So let me draw it. So consumer surplus is actually this area. Let me shade it with yellow color. Until price is 3625, and then here. This is the first area, and the second area is the small triangle here until 625. So we have two areas actually. The first one is actually this. Yeah. Yeah. Then I shade it. So in terms of drawing, it looks like trapezoid between the price of 3625 up to 10, and then at point B here, and then at this point. Okay, this point with quantity 50. This point, okay, let me call it point, this point, I mean this point W. And then another thing, another additional bit of consumer surplus is this triangle. If you're not so sure about my drawing, compare this with the one in the textbook, that you can see what I mean. So we have the blue shaded one and the red one. And we add both of these, it becomes the total consumer surplus for one single price. So let's calculate it. So for the shaded blue here, okay, the shaded blue area here is actually this, yeah. Let me show you. 1/2. How to calculate trapezoid? That's how you calculate this shaded blue area. Multiply by the base, and also the top you add it, and the base is actually 10 minus 3.625. Okay, let me put square here, plus the top here is actually this one, this distance. Let me use different color. This distance, okay, it's actually the second one here. It's actually 5 minus 3.625. Let me use red pen so that you are not confused. Okay. So plus the top area, the top distance here, which is 5 minus 3.625. Then close it, and then what do you get here? Multiply by quantity 50. Okay, so that's the blue shaded area. Okay, and then plus the triangle, the red here. The red here is actually 1/2. Okay, multiply by what? By 55 actually. Let's check it. And then we have the base here. Yes, because this one is 105 minus 50. 105 minus 50. And then multiply by the distance that I showed you earlier, which is in bracket 5. Let me put it here, yes, because the space is not enough. Multiply by 5 minus 3.625. Okay, so we have two different areas for consumer surplus. The first one is this. The second one is this. So when you add up the first one, too much space has been used here, so let me erase. So the first one, which is this, gives you what value? The first one, the trapezoid area, yeah, will give you this value, 193.8. 0.75. And the second one here, the small triangle which is red, okay, will give you the area of 37.8125. So the total consumer surplus is actually what? It's actually 231.5625. That's the total consumer surplus. Now, we are halfway in calculating the welfare of uniform price. What about the producer surplus? What's the value here? Let's calculate the producer surplus. Once we have producer surplus, then we can have the total welfare in it. So producer surplus is very simple in this case. With the price of 3625 and the quantity 105 produced by this firm, where is the producer surplus area? So the producer surplus area is actually this area, this one. So this area is very easy to calculate, and the producer surplus here would be what? Would be, if you calculate it yourself, you're gonna get this value. Yeah, you try it yourself. Yeah, because this is very easy to find actually. It is 275.625. This is very easy to calculate. It's the shaded area, the yellow one here, the last one, the last yellow. So you have 105 quantity at this point 50. You have price 3625. You have 1 here. So you can calculate your producer surplus. So the total welfare is very simple. So you have, 231.5625 for consumer surplus plus 275.625. Then you can get the total welfare here. And the total welfare here is actually what? 507.1875. That's the total welfare. Okay. So if we try to compare and contrast, then we can put it in the form of schedule like this. So you look here. So recall back, without price discrimination, we have calculated the total consumer surplus 231.5625. Remember? So this one, 231.5625. Okay. Without price discrimination, we also have calculated the producer surplus 275.625. In fact, I didn't calculate it. I want you to calculate it because this one is very easy. The triangle here is very easy to find. 275.625. Okay. So the total surplus, you add this plus this, you get 507.1875. Okay. But then with price discrimination, if we can recall back the previous one, the total consumer surplus here is 161.25. The total producer surplus is 322.5. Okay, so if you look here, the summary, it is right, 161.25, 322.5. So when you add up both of them, you get the total total welfare for the third degree price discrimination, which is 483.75. So as you can see here, consumer surplus, the difference is this. Producer surplus, the difference is this. And the total surplus, the difference is this. So what can we say about the third degree price discrimination in this case here? Is it giving you more benefit or less benefit here when you do the comparison here? Okay. With the linear demand curve, as you can see, the way we draw, all of them are linear. Linear demand curve, linear marginal cost curve, linear. This one is linear. Sorry, this is not perfectly linear. So when you have something like this one is linear, this one is linear, this one is linear. So you don't have something like this, you don't have something like this. So all of them are linear. For your study here, we don't teach you non-linear that much. Okay, so you can see that the price discrimination reduces welfare. How do you know? The net losses here. Okay, except if one group does not consume the good without price discrimination, then the price discrimination increases total output and results in a net welfare gain. So that's the thing that we can see. But as soon as the assumption of linearity, the demand curve is eliminated. So we have nonlinear. Yeah? If we take out this assumption, then this one no longer exists. It becomes nonlinear. the welfare is implication is very hard to calculate because nonlinear is not very easy to calculate. Yeah, even until now, in reality, we don't have linearity in the demand curve. In reality, we have nonlinear most of the time. Okay, there's no such kind of thing, so-called ideal situation. So that's why this is a very interesting, part of the price discrimination that can be studied in the research for postgraduate students. So if you wish to go for the postgraduate studies, so perhaps this is one, small area that you want to look at. And it's very interesting, to be honest, because the non-linearity is a very interesting subject in the study of postgrad even until now. Even I like it very, very much. You have to be very, very good in mathematics especially. So that's it for the price discrimination. Thank you very much.